Let's be super honest. Debt can feel like a dirty little secret, especially when it feels like it's a noose around your neck. But carrying financial stress does not make you a failure. In fact, it helps you be able to see what not to do and what to do in the future. This episode, I'm going to pull back the curtain on my own debt, my own financial crisis, and I'm going to share with you the mindset that shifted everything. And what I realized was you cannot fix what you cannot face. Let's go. Welcome to the Clinical Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Rhonda, your no fluff, tell it like it is business bestie for wellness practitioners just like you who want to build a practice you love and make a bigger impact and a little money while you're at it. So if you're ready to ditch the overwhelm, attract your dream, ideal patients, and finally run your practice with complete confidence, you're in the right place. Each week, we're tackling things from programs to patient retention to marketing strategies that actually work, sprinkled, of course, with a little sass, a lot of heart, and the step-by-step strategies that will help you get there. So grab your cup of coffee, your notebook, or whatever keeps you going, and let's build a practice you love and a life you love together. Well, hey friends, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. This week, we're going to talk about debt. Ooh, saucy. Yes, that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. Some of you have heard my story before. It's a juicy one. Let me tell you what, I don't ever want to have to do that again. That was a no. And I not only did it once, I did it twice. Actually, I did it 3 times, but the third time was when I was really young. But the other 2 times I was well into adulthood and did it twice. So we're going to talk about that. But the goal, I think, for me today about talking about this is really to help you feel empowered about any kind of debt, whether it's student loan debt or credit card debt or business debt. Sometimes, in a business, you have to take on debt in order to make money. You have to borrow in order. Sometimes, if your business is very, very, very lucrative and you've got lots of cash reserves, Keith Cunningham calls it dry powder, your dry powder, your cash reserves. You've got lots of that laying around. You just go pay cash for something. That's awesome. I love that for you. But most businesses, as they're growing, they really need that lending leverage in order to get them to a better place where they can generate more revenue. And so I understand all of that. But nonetheless, when that debt is hanging over your head, you're just like, it just feels so heavy. It just feels so weighty. So when I was in my late 30s, mid 30s, I decided that I was going to open a juice franchise. And that juice franchise there's only 1 or 2 stores left in the state of Utah now, but it was when it was, this supposed to be this really great franchise and we were going to get in early, it's one of those, I'll sell you some, swamp in Florida kind of thing. Anyway, it sounded great and it ended up not being great. They were operating illegally. We bought this franchise, got a small business loan, opened up a store, had to pay $20,000 permit to the city, $20,000 to the city because we were in a zoned area that was for a drive-through coffee shop, but we did not have a drive-through coffee shop, but because it was zoned that way, we had to pay the $20,000, even though we didn't have the thing. Looking back now, I'm thinking, I should have just said no right then, but I didn't because I was all excited about this healthy juice thing. So I'm running my full-time practice. I think, I'll just go, start this next business. So I'm not going to tell you the year until a little bit later. But anyway, so we had this business and it was, slow. But I'm doing all the right things. I'm out marketing. I'm meeting people. I'm taking free smoothies to businesses. And we're starting to get people and they're coming in. They're like, oh my gosh, we love this so much more than Jamba Juice. Jamba Juice has a real chemical taste. Yours is fresh. It's all fresh fruit and all fresh good things. And so it kind of started to pick up. And then we opened in March. And so we were able to get through the hot summer. This was in Northern California. We were able to get through the hot summer and we were growing. And the fall was when the problem happened. And that was in October of 2008. So for those of you that are old enough to remember that, yes, 2008 was when everything went belly up. And so I have this big old business and I have this big old debt. And it was, I don't know, at the time was probably $250,000 or $300,000 in debt. We were losing about $15,000 a month between payroll and overhead and, debt servicing and the franchise fees and all the things. And so finally, I just had to call it, and we had to buy out the lease. It was painful. It was very painful. And we had to pay off the SB8. We just took that on as a debt. We had to just pay it off. So it was quite spicy. And so I thought, oh, I'll never do this again. Yeah, well. So then comes around about maybe 4 years later, 5 years later, I got to thinking one day, I think that I had so many menopausal women that were struggling with this like unwanted belly fat, the kind that just goes on lockdown, right? When you go into menopause. And it has to do with adrenals. And I get it. I get all the physiology, but I'm like, it just doesn't want to come off. So how can I help them? So I found this aesthetic device. And I thought, well, this is going to work really well. And so I didn't buy just one of them. I bought two of them, and they were each well over $100,000. And so now I have two of them. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be perfect. So I start out and I've got the billboards. I've got all the things. I'm like all in. And I got a waiting list of people. So it's not like I didn't have the audience. That was what I was doing, was female hormone work. So I had all the people lined up. Everybody was ready to go, and the data was solid. The science was solid. It was fairly new at that time, in the country, but in the United States had been used overseas, but here it was fairly new. So I thought, oh, this is going to be like perfect. This is going to be great. And a few months after I started doing the procedure, I found out that in California that the laws changed, and a mean girl actually sent me a fax. This will date me, but she sent me a fax and she said to me, it would be a real big shame if someone turned you into the medical board for practicing medicine without a license now, wouldn't it? Yeah, there are mean girls out there like that. Girls are mean. And she still has a business today. She's like, I don't not like people. And if I only could pick one person, she would be on my not like list. I like everybody, but she's my one. I have a list of one people, and she's my one. So she says to me, it would be a shame. And I thought, what are you talking about? I don't even know. Well, unbeknownst to me, the laws changed in California. And indeed, with the license that I had, I was not able to legally do what I was doing. It was stupid. So that's California for you. So I had to get the equipment out of California. Now, just like with the juice franchise, something changed, right? The environment changed. The political or the economic environment changed. We had a crash. We had a meltdown. We had an economic problem. And so I couldn't have foreseen that. Now, if I was an economist, maybe if I was running in those circles and they're saying it's good, the bubble's going to pop, it's going to happen. Maybe, but I'm not that I don't know. Like, I just didn't evaluate that risk. That what is the risk of that happening? To me, it was zero. Same here. What was this chance that I was going to end up with all of this now well over $200,000 worth of equipment and all the tables and the beds and all the things that go with it? It's like basically I kind of started up a whole different arm of my business. And then all of a sudden, overnight, I had to move it out of the state of California. And because of the way they changed the screwy laws there. Moved it, and I moved it out of state, and I didn't know where else to go with it. But I thought, I got to get out, because I'm illegal here, and I'm not going to do something that's illegal. So I got to get into a state where it is legal. So moved it all out of state. But that didn't mean that the debt didn't change, right? It was a brand new technology, fairly new. And so I couldn't get any loans. I could only get leases. So, the leases are always higher, more expensive. The leases were still, they're still taking the payments. I had to put it in a mini storage, a heated mini storage. So I had that. I had to fulfill billboards. I had contracts on marketing and advertising and things like that I still had to pay for, even though I'm not in California anymore with this equipment. And it literally sat in a storage unit for 6 months. And so every month that went by, I had those unexpected expenses, right? They were coming in, and I had no income to offset them. And so now I've got another problem. I'm in the same kind of situation that I was before. I'm in this big problem situation. I've got all this debt, and it was not surprisingly, about $15,000 a month after month after month after month. Well, where's that cash going to come from? Like, I can't just pull it out of the air. I wasn't making that much money. I was profitable with my business, but enough that I could feed my family and take care of myself. That, it was like I wasn't making tens of thousands of extra dollars every month. So I did what every respectable and in crisis person would do. This is a joke, by the way. Don't take me literally here, but I decided that I was going to, at the time, I had to use 100% of my supplement sales as cash, and I did not pay for my supplements. I put them on credit. And at the time, I could do that with the supplement company I was working with. So I just didn't pay my invoices a month after month after month after month after month after month. And so pretty soon I get a letter from this. They kept shipping me supplements, which I was really thankful for. But I had to make up this extra $15,000. Plus, I had to keep my practice running. And then on top of that, I didn't pay my IRS taxes, my payroll taxes for 14 months. So the day the IRS lady comes to knocking on the door, coming to talk to me, I hide under my desk. This is a true story. I do because I don't want her to find me. Like, how chicken is that? Talk about fear, right? So I am in financial trouble of epic proportion, far worse than the first time. But it came about because of a circumstance that I didn't see. Now, granted, maybe I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I shouldn't have bought 2 machines. Maybe I should have bought one. Maybe I should have just left that to the professional. I don't know. But it is what it is. I had what I had. So now I'm embarrassed. I feel like a failure and a fraud because I am this well-respected, well-trusted, reasonable. I had no problem. I have a waitless practice. And I'm carrying the secret of this debt that is mounting. And it was like almost $750,000 of debt by the time it was all said and done. So I thought, I just ignored it is really what I did because I was so embarrassed. I just said, well, I'm going to just pretend. And so I just ignored it. And I think that's it's a little bit of a trauma response, but I was very traumatized by this. And I think that so many of us, like even credit card debt, we just ignore it. We just kind of just pay the minimum payments and we just ignore it. Or student loan debt, we just kind of ignore it. We just pay the minimum payments and don't pay much attention. But what I realized, kind of the turning point for me, was when I realized that the math wasn't mathing. And I can't fix what I won't face. I can't fix it. It felt like 1,000 pounds on my back. And I would call my dad and I would say, Dad, I'm going to have to file for bankruptcy. And he would say, kiddo, all you have to do is just today. Just focus on today. Just focus on today. That's all you have to do is focus on today. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. He goes, I understand. Just focus on today. And I never ended up filing bankruptcy. I ended up being able to pay all of it back. But the turning point for me in managing the debt was when I realized I cannot fix what I will not face. And the numbers are not my enemy. They're just the starting line for me. I just had to get uncomfortably clear about the mountain that I was facing. And then I had to figure out a way to scale it because I knew, in the back of your mind, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get out of this by just ignoring it. It's not going to go away. It's going to impact my credit. It's going to impact my ability to buy a house or buy a car or whatever. Ignoring it didn't solve the problem. And so I thought, okay, I got to get clear about this. So what I did was I sat down and I literally just had a legal pad, those white legal pads. I had the lines on them and it was brand new. I went to Staples and I bought this legal pad with lines on it. And that legal pad, I wrote on the cardboard part on the back, the back of it. I wrote on the back of it and I said, I am debt free. And I knew that legal pad was going to give me, in all those pages in that legal pad, I knew that the legal pad was going to help me be able to get out of all this debt. So the first thing I did on page 1, that first top page, I wrote down everything I owed. So I wrote down every balance, what was the outstanding balance. Looking back, I think I kind of almost I'll say disassociated with myself because it was so painful to look at. But I just said, I'm going to face it. I'm just going to face it. And I'm going to be powerful when I face it. I'm going to face it like I'm the boss and I have a problem to solve and I'm going to solve the problem. And so I wrote down every balance. I wrote down every interest rate. I wrote down the date that it was due every month. The payment came out. I wrote down the minimum payment and I wrote down the term. Like the leases had a term, right? A credit card doesn't have a term, but I got as much detail as I could. And I thought, okay, this is a big old mountain, like a big dragon, and I am going to slay this dragon. And I may not have anything, but like in David and Goliath, a slingshot and a rock, but I will do this. And so I couldn't get clear about solving the problem and getting out of debt until I knew what I could define the problem. Does that make sense? I needed to define the problem. problem. So no matter how long it took, no matter what I had to do, I was going to fix it. So I started then, once I had that, I knew what my total was. I knew what every month, exactly what was the minimum. And I thought, well, I'm never going to get out of debt if I just pay the minimum. So I upped it by $1,000. I said, how can I add $1,000 to what I'm paying on this month to get me one step closer? And I figured, based on my calculations, and I figured that it would take me about 4 years to get out of this debt mountain. And I was fine with that. But I felt so much more in control when I was able to write it down and see it in front and not ignore it, because the ignoring it was why I was hiding under the desk when the IRS lady showed up. This was not cool. So I set the intention. I wrote down on the back, I am debt free. And then I started to get clear. I can't solve a problem if I don't know what the problem is. It's kind of like us with patients, right? I can't help you if I don't know all the details. You have to tell me all the things. I have to know about your elimination. I have to know about your digestion. I have to know about your sleep. I have to know about your lifestyle and your exercise and your mental state and the health of your relationships and your previous surgeries and your dental health. And I have to know all those things. I can't help you if I don't have all the facts. So now let's shift into, like, how do we fix this problem? So there's 3 strategies that are out there. At the time, there's probably more now, but at the time there were 3 that I considered. One is called the avalanche method, and that's where you find the one with the highest interest rate and you pay that down as quick as you can, because you're losing all of that interest, right? It's got high interest rate. I didn't choose to do that because my highest interest rates were the leases that I had on the equipment, and those things were going to take me like 3 years to pay off. And I thought, I will mentally die a slow death if I cannot see myself making more progress. Like, that's going to kill me. And it didn't free up any cash flow for me. It just made my cash flow problem worse. So the snowball method is the opposite. It's finding the little ones to pay off that gives you the dopamine hit to have more allocated to pay the bigger ones off. And then there's one that's a combination, and it's kind of called the reverse snowball is what they call it. And that's where you find the medium-sized debts to get your cash flow open. So you do the medium-sized ones, that's going to give you a bigger chunk of cash. I chose the snowball method. I chose to kick off the little ones first. So what were my smallest ones? Well, my smallest ones were the billboard campaign that we had at the time. And I think that one was like, I don't know, $7,000. So I thought, okay, if I was paying, I don't know, $150 or $200 a month on that. And I thought, all right, well, $7,000 seems more reasonable to me. It only is going to free up $150 or $200, but at least it's off my list. And I want the dopamine hit that I can check it off, that debt paid, because then that's just going to give me more like gumph to go get the next one. So that's what I did. I paid off that one first. And that one only took me about 5 months. And I was pretty happy with that. And I'm still paying the minimums on the other ones. I still have an extra $1,000 that I'm kind of allocating, right? I was allocating it towards the billboard campaign. And so that was how I started to kind of get on top of it. I had to reverse engineer, like, what's my debt? And then how much can I give extra? Well, you might ask, well, then where does the extra come from? Well, that's how I had to get creative. So I thought, all right, if I need $1,000 a month extra to pay for this debt, then where am I going to get that $1,000? So I said, okay, well, how many new patient appointments do I need? That's pretty easy, right? At the time, I think I was charging like, I don't know, $250 or something for a new patient appointment. So I thought, okay, if I need 4 new patients a month. And those 4 new patients, so I looked at how many new patients am I getting right now? Let's say I had 6 a month. I need 10. So how am I going to get 10 more? Well, I'm going to network with someone. I'm going to do a little bit more aggressive emailing, or I gotta find 4 more new patients a month, and that's going to help me. But by being clear in my mind about what I wanted, and now we're kind of back to, the law of attraction, the law of intention. I was just said, I need 4 more new patients every month. That's what I need. I need 4. And so I got them every month. I ended up with 10, sometimes 12 new patients in a month. Well, the problem it was a good problem, but then my practice got a little bit more waitlisted. And so that created a whole nother thing. But I also ended up making more money because I was selling more supplements. And so then there was that revenue stream that was coming in. So I had to adjust my flow after a little bit, because I just started to get kind of bottlenecked. But my point is that I had to get clear about what I wanted first, but I couldn't say, well, I wanted this ambiguous, my goal in 2026 is to be out of debt. That is the dumbest goal you could ever say. Why? Because it has no teeth. How are you going to do that? How are you? What is your plan? What is your roadmap? What is your yellow brick road? What is the yellow brick road? Where are you going to follow the yellow brick road? Where are you going to do that? You have to know what is the path. My path was first, I have to get clear about the debt. Next, I have to decide, I have to look at my monthly payments. What am I in this for? What do I need to make every month in order to pay these things off? Which one am I going to pay first? And then what is my plan? How many new patients do I need? How much more supplement sales do I need? How many more do I need to like host a webinar? Do I need to go do more teaching? What do I need to do in order to do that? Then in the business, I had to start saying no to the things that were the shiny objects. I had to say no to the things that came across my Facebook feed. I had to say no to things because I was saying yes to something else. And my yes was powerful because I didn't want the debt. I was done. I don't want to do this anymore. So I was very strategic with every dollar that I earned. And what we do, you and I do in business is we sometimes think, well, there's cash left over at the end of the month. Oh, I can buy that program or I'll go travel here. I'll go do that. I was like, I was religious. If I wanted to go eat out, I would do that, but I didn't go eat out and spend a big old fat dollar. I would just go eat out because I wanted to. But then I was back in the grind because I was more committed to getting out of debt than I was to having all the things and then looking like I was rich. In other words, you buy the car, you buy the big fancy car because you like it. Well, everybody likes a big fancy car. My favorite car in the whole wide world is a Porsche. I own one. I love Porsches. I just love them. But I planned for that. I planned for that. I wanted that. That was important to me because I grew up in a car family. That's just was important to me. But you don't have to do that if you can't afford it. In other words, you can't keep up with the Joneses if you got all this mountain of debt that you're just closing your eyes and kind of blindly pretending isn't there. So we have to avoid the trap of looking at successful on the outside while we're like broke on the inside. That makes sense. The other thing I did was I raised my prices. That was another way that I could get my income up. And I didn't do it, hugely. I think I went from if I remember right, I think I went from $250 to $295 for a new patient. And I think my follow-up visits went up by $15 or something, which was fine. But, if I add all that up and all the follow-up appointments, I now had some extra cash. And then I could take that extra. And pretty soon at the end of the month, I would be like, I've got an extra $800. I got myself paid. I've got my staff paid. I've got my overhead paid. I'm fine. I have extra $800. I'm going to put that against a debt. And the snowball starts to snowball. And all of a sudden, I'm getting faster and faster at paying these things off. And now a year in, I'm 35% paid off. I'm thinking, dang, this is going better than I thought. Maybe it's not going to take me 4 years. Maybe it's only going to take me 3 years. It ended up taking me just under 3 years. I was about 2 years and 10 months, and I got it all paid off. And it was only because I set my mind to it first. First I got clear about what it was, and then I was very intentional about how I allocated the money. So for you, if you are in debt or you've got credit card debt, which most Americans do, when we have credit card debt, when we have business debt, even a car loan is a debt, really. Your house is a debt. Write it all down. Write it all down. If you're paying off your house is your last thing that you want to work on, fine. You want to get all the other stuff done, fine. Do that. Do it in phases. I want to pay this off first, and then I'm going to pay this off, and then I'm going to pay this off. So whatever it is you're going to do, just do it, but do it with intentionality. So that's what I would say to you. I hope this is encouraging to you, even though it's kind of a discouraging story, but it has a really good ending. But sometimes things happen, sometimes life happens and we end up in a financial situation that's not optimal. But I'm here. I did it twice. The first time was just, we just gritted through that SBA loan and all that other stuff. We just gritted through it. It was super painful. I didn't have a plan. But the second time I did it, unbeknownst to me with the whole California thing, this time I said, okay, I'm going to be really intentional about this. Now, when I use my credit card, I don't worry about my credit card as much. I'll use it, but I know I'm going to pay it because now I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of looking. I'm not afraid of going, crap. How did that credit card balance get up to $25,000? Do you know why that happens? Because you and I aren't paying attention. It's what happens. In fact, it just happened to me about maybe 6 months ago. I have an Amazon credit card and I charge things on Amazon and I use it when I travel and I just know the minimum payment comes out and I'll throw I have $3,000 or $4,000 and I'll put that on there. I'm like, oh, that's probably fine. I wasn't looking. And one day I logged in and I saw it said $25,000. It was almost 26,000. I went, wait, what? And I thought, oh my gosh, someone's using my card. Like they're charging on my card. It's been compromised. I've not been looking. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I looked, none of that monkey business going on. It was all me. It's because I wasn't paying attention. And that's the biggest thing I want to leave you with today is you can't conquer and get out of debt if you're not paying attention. So my challenge to you is set a monthly check-in. Like put it on your calendar where this is like a financial check-in and it's 1 hour. Just 1 hour. That's all you got to do. Once a month. This is just like I'm going to just check in and see what's happening. And you're going to look at every single balance of everything you have and you're going to write it down. Get yourself a legal pad or some notebook of some kind and you write it down. October, November, December, January, every single month, you write down all the balances. And you're going to start to see when you have balances that go up, you're going to, all of it, it will happen. You'll say, wait a minute, what's happening? I'm trying to get out of debt. Why is this one going up? What you inspect, what you give attention to is what you can resolve. You can solve what you look at, but you can't solve the problem if you don't face it. You have to look at it and document it. So set that calendar time for you to look at your finances and write down what are the balances, what are the interest rates, what is your payment, when does the payment come out, what is a term, if it's a term like a lease or a loan or something like that. The second thing I would tell you is, Mike Michalowicz wrote the book Profit First. I like Profit First. I think that for most businesses, the way that he breaks it down in the book, the concept is amazing. It's really good. But he recommends that you open like 7 different accounts and you're transferring money back and forth. Okay, I did that, drank the Kool-Aid, did the whole thing, had all the accounts, and I was just too busy to do it. And so now I only have 2 accounts. I have one account that is my profit account. And I literally, right now, I'm pulling about 3 to 4% out of my business. And I do it every week. And I put it into that profit account. So I'm basically pulling out the profit and putting it aside. And that aside money is not money that I touch. It doesn't ever come back in the business. It stays where it is. It's in a different bank. I have to be intentional about moving that money. So I can't go just transfer it back into my operating account. So set a you can do it however you want, but I have a profit account and then I have an inventory account for my med spa business, which is still existing, by the way. This was, out of the last crash. I survived and it's still thriving and profitable and it's all good. But I have a big overhead costs. And so I have an overhead, like an inventory account. So every time that I use up my inventory, I take that cost out of the income and I put it back in that account so that I have the money to pay for the inventory. Does that make sense? I'm basically pulling out the cost of goods and I'm putting it in account so that when I'm ready to restock it, I've got the money to be able to do that. I don't have to pay thousands of dollars for my inventory. That's at least how it works here. My practice, I'm all virtual, so I don't have inventory like a lot of you do. If you have brick and mortar, same idea. You want the expenses, the costs that you're going to have, you want to factor those in and have an account where you have like a reserve built in. So I also give myself at least a 24 or a 48-hour think about it rule. I put myself in timeout before I make any decision. I will not buy anything online. I will not sign up for anything if I do not sit for 24 hours. So when I get on a call for someone who's thinking about joining Clinical Business Academy, I always say, I think you're a great fit or I think you won't be a great fit and here's why. But for those that are a good fit, they'll say, I'll tell them how much. And they say, well, I want to think about this and then I'll get back to you. And I'm like, I agree. I think you should. I respect that because it means that we don't make rash decisions. And rash decisions are probably what got my credit card up to $25,000. It's probably what happened is I was just like, oh yeah, not paying attention. So always thinking about it. And then it's okay if you have some strategic debt. Like if you went into debt to buy a piece of equipment in your business, that's fine. But you got to have a plan about how you're going to pay that thing off. How are we going to get the debt down? That's the big goal, right? How are we going to get that debt down? So you got to face that, look at it, write it down. How are you going to get it down as fast as we possibly can? So, staying out of debt really requires that we have systems around it, like a monthly meeting. We have maybe you like spreadsheets or somebody in CBA and she loves her spreadsheets. She's got tons of them. It makes her so happy. I'm not really a spreadsheet. I like them, but not like that. She's kind of over the top. She loves them so much and we love her spreadsheets. But I think that when you have some kind of a system or an organization that keeps you focused on your goal, you're far more likely to achieve that goal because it's front and center. You're visiting it every time. Like looking at the stats in your business. How many new patients did I see this month? Okay, I wanted 8. I only got 6. What do I need to do next month to get that up? What am I doing with my mindset? Like, how am I thinking about it? Are we thinking about debt? It's like this crushing weight, which is what I was doing, this crushing weight that's on my back. Or am I opening up and being more expansive in how I think about it? And I think, okay, it isn't any more than like I'm stuck in traffic. I just have to go as slow as it will let me go. And then pretty soon it will open up and I can go back again. And so it's something that I just have to work through. It's a mountain that I'm going to climb and conquer. And it might take me a while to get over the summit, but that's all right. I've got time. But with a plan and an intention, I now have opened up the opportunity for the universe, God, to bring me what I'm intentioning, which is a debt-free business. I have zero debt and I have an abundance of revenue and resource. And so be clear about what it is that you want at the end of the day. It's not just willpower, like, oh, I'm going to just willpower my way through it. That's what I did the first time. But the second time, I was way, way, way more intentional, way more intentional. And it went so much faster. And it actually became a game. Like, it was really kind of exciting. I was like, yes, this month I get to put $5,000 on that loan. Yeah, baby. $5,000 closer to having that thing gone. And maybe take me a year. I didn't care because I could see every month when I went in and I wrote down my debt, I could see those balances going down. And oh my gosh, talk about an endorphin hit. I was stoked. And I'm looking at every opportunity to get a little bit more revenue in the door so that I could pay those things off. And I did. It took me just under 3 years to pay off $750,000 worth of debt. But it was because I was intentional. And the abundance came because I was clear about my outcomes. You don't need a financial expert to get out of debt. You don't need any of that. All you need is a yellow brick road. You need a blueprint. You need a clear plan and some really honest conversations with yourself or your spouse. Like, ooh, sometimes money conversations with spouses can be a little saucy, but I think that there's value in saying, here's where we're at. Like, how are we going to make this go away? And how are we going to keep from getting back into this situation again? And it's a willingness to just keep going even when it gets hard. And it means not going out to eat. Okay, I'm fine. Cooking at home is always healthier anyway. So it's not a bad thing. We just have to be a little bit more prepared, right? I have to think about what I'm going to cook. You got this, my friend. You've got this. And if you don't have any debt, you go for it. Good job. But you probably were a point in your life when you did. And if you're out of it now, good. Now, how do you invest in your future? How do you invest? How do you take the money that you are making and invest it? Invest it into real estate, invest it into, whatever makes you, I'm not here to give you financial advice. I can only tell you what I've done. And that my first big job was to get out of debt. And I did it twice. First way was the hard way. I just had to grind it out. But the second way, it was a sacrifice. But I have to say, looking back, as hard as it was far more enjoyable. And might I say, exhilarating to some degree, because I actually was able to get out of debt and I could see it happening in real time. And I got so excited about the progress that I would make. And I had one sheet that I kept, and I'll wrap with this, where I had the original balance when I started. At that first day when I wrote on page 1, that very first day, I had the original balance, and the payments, they don't change, but I had the original balance. And I would compare them and I would watch, like every 6 months or so, I would say, okay, here's the 6-month updated balance. And when I saw the balances going down, I don't know, there was nothing like that feeling. Nothing like that feeling of being able to come back and conquer something that felt so huge and so insurmountable, and something that I was literally hiding under physically curled up in a ball underneath between the legs of my office chair and the desk, the underneath of the desk. And I was just curled up and hiding because it was something I didn't want to face. But the sooner that you can face it and you can articulate it and you can get it written out, it's like, get the monster out of the closet. Just get it out of the closet, get it undressed, get all the things, lay it all out on the table. It's overwhelming, but it's not as scary. And that's where you're going to be able to find that you'll be able to slowly get this debt situation under control. So I am not a financial advisor. I can only tell you what I did. If you want help, if you need help, please reach out to me. You can always message me. You can DM me and say, could we just get on a call? I'm happy to help you however I can. I also really would encourage you, if you're looking for the support of people just like you that are either trying to get out of debt, or they're trying to build a business, you're trying to get more marketing you want to get new people in the door. You're tired of working so hard. And like I talked about last week on the podcast about being a perfectionist, right? About having that mindset that everything just has to be perfect all the time. If you feel like your business, your wellness practice is like a noose around your neck, I can help you loosen the noose, give you some perspective, and get that business working so that it's actually working for you and making you money and doing it while you sleep. That's the goal, is recurring that recurring revenue. That's how we get out of debt, right? There's one of the solutions. So go to rhondanelson.com/C and you can get on a call with me and we can talk. I'm happy to talk with you. So anyway, have a great week and I'll see you next week here, same place, same time. Take care.